What is going on, guys? It's been, long 6 months or so since I've made a video, and just getting a lot of stuff done around the house, stuff on the Jeep, just trying to stay busy. But we are back in business. If you guys have kept up with me on Instagram or Facebook groups, you know that I was having some transfer case issues. Basically came to the conclusion that the chain had stretched, and looked into a new chain. It was about $150 for a new chain. I was originally going to go that route, but after doing some research on eBay, basically came across a used transfer case out of a wrecked Durango. They use these single speed transfer case in a lot of vehicles. So basically it's the MP3010 transfer case that you need to be looking for. I found one on eBay for $220, so basically just a little bit more than a new chain, and I didn't have to worry about taking the transfer case apart to switch it out. Basically able to just switch out the other one, drop this one in, and we are back to go. Super happy to get back out here on the trails. These are pretty close to my house. I've had a few pictures up on my Instagram out here. It's super nice. This place is only maybe 10 minutes from my house, but it's a good place to test stuff out. I was happy to get out here and just not have to hear that popping from my transfer case again. That was, getting kind of worrisome. I like to get out, but I don't want to grenade my transfer case out here and then be stuck and have to get pulled out. So we were kind of easier on it there for a little bit, but back to normal. Happy to get this done now. I'm going out to Bridgeport on the 25th, so I'm hoping to see some of you guys out there. If you're not going, put it on your calendars. I'll be out there October 25th in the morning. If you haven't been out to Bridgeport, great place to test your Jeep out. Not the prettiest park, but tons of obstacles and a little bit of stuff for everyone. So I'll get some videos up here. There's a little bit of action out here just so you guys can see the Jeep in action, and also see the difference between the noise that it was making before and now. So just stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'm gonna start getting some more videos up. I know it's been a little while since I got one up, but I'm back to getting some videos going. So stay tuned, subscribe, hit me up with any comments. If you're not already following me on Instagram, get over there. It's TRAILTROOPER WK2 is my username. I usually post pretty often on there. It's a little bit easier to get pictures up over getting some video done. So just get me checked out, and stay tuned. I'll get a little bit of action footage here. of the process of changing that transfer case out for any of you guys that want to, you know, tackle the job. It really didn't take me that long once we figured out how to pull those drive shafts. That was the hardest part. I've done drive shafts on solid axle vehicles with a U-joint, but I hadn't done anything with a cup style flange on there, so it was a little difficult figuring out at first, but we finally got it, and now I know what to do on the next job, so have to tackle it again. It really won't be that bad. So I'm gonna get under there and kind of show you guys the run through everything. Okay, the first thing you're gonna see under here that you're gonna want to get off is this exhaust, because it's right under the drive shaft and it's just gonna be in the way. So when I redid mine, my studs actually broke off up here, so I had to weld new bolts in. So I don't have the factory studs on there, but basically it's the same. You're gonna undo the nut up there. It just comes off. There's 2 on each side. So do that. There is 2 bolts up here. There are 13 millimeter, I believe. Best thing you're gonna want to do is put a jack under this thing. It won't fall down from the front because of the studs in there. After you do the rear, you're going to basically need to have a jack under it holding it, drop the rear end down of the exhaust, and then you can pull the front out. Basically I used some furniture dollies, and that was the best thing to do to roll it out. Basically I could just roll it out in one piece. It didn't weigh that much, but once that's out, you've got access to the drive shaft. There's some heat shields up there. You got to take those off. There's a couple you got to take off, one bigger one, one small one. They just have little nuts holding them on up there. That's basically, once you got that, you got a view of the drive shaft. You don't need to unbolt it from the rear differential. I thought I was going to, but it really didn't make sense since both ends have this cup on the end that the drive shaft sits inside. It's actually covered by this rubber dampener, but basically that has 4 little bolts holding it on. You will need to have a 10 millimeter 5-point socket, like a star head. All these nuts, or the bolts on here are, most of them are either Allen head, which I will look at the size on that, and then 10 millimeter star headed bolts, which you can see, these are the side holding the front half of the transfer case up. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do to get this drive shaft off is put these, take these bolts out. Now I will tell you this, they are in there tight. It's kind of a process to get them out. Basically I had to use kind of a swivel and an extension on my ratchet, but you're basically going to have to, I think there's 6 bolts around there. You're going to have to get them all out. You gotta make sure you get these little spreader pieces off too. They'll just fall out, but when you're reinstalling it, make sure you get those off too. I forgot to put them on first. I had to take them back out and redo it again. So remember to put those on. But basically you can see in here for this dampener, there's some bolts inside there. There's 4 of them just holding it on. This thing doesn't spin, it's just held in there. I'm pretty sure it's a dampener. Not really exactly sure what it is. So once you basically get these bolts out, this drive shaft is it's wedged in there, and I'll show you on the other transfer case. I had to grind small little divots, and you can kind of see one there around the edge, to basically have something to pound on it with a screwdriver from the other side. I had to make 3 around it to basically have something to get leverage on to pull that drive shaft out. Once we knocked on it for about 15 minutes, turning it. Make sure you put this thing in neutral, and lift the rear tires off the ground to get it to spin, so you can rotate this and pop it out. And then once you get it popped out, you're gonna have to make sure you support the drive shaft. I personally welded a bolt up to the top, so I was able to put a tie strap around it to hold it, and then that can just stay there in the future if I ever have to pull this thing out again. But basically, once you get this drive shaft out, so 6 bolts out and then just pound it out, support that, you'll have that rear drive shaft done. And then basically after that, you got to do the front. Now the front is the exact same process. The only difference with the front is you don't have access to it as easy as the back. You've got to take off this crossmember. So in the process of doing that, you also have to support the transmission. Now I don't have my little cover on. I just haven't put it back on yet. But basically what you can do is get a piece of plywood that's about the size of that transmission pan, put it under there, and jack it up with the floor jack. Now you're not really wanting to jack the actual transmission up, you're just wanting to have it under there enough to support it. Because once you pull this cross member off, that's what's holding your transmission up. So that mount right there is hooked up to the transmission. So you got to have something under there to support it. So basically you're going to remove this cross piece, then this cross piece. You also got to take off this exhaust bracket. Now that's just mounted to the actual transfer case, but you will need to eventually take that off, so you might as well just take it off now. Exhaust isn't going to come off. It's supported at the front enough once you get this rear exhaust off. But once you get those 2 cross pieces, there are 3 bolts on each side. Take those out. And then there are these 2 nuts, and that's what's holding that motor mount, or I'm sorry, the transmission mount up there. So once that's out, this crossover is going to fall out, and that's basically what's supporting the transfer case. But you have your jack under there, so you are good to go. So now you'll have full access, and you can kind of see it from this side. I'll get under here from the other side. But it's the exact same process as that rear. 6 bolts, all Allen headed. I was not able to really get a socket in here good. I had to actually use just an Allen key, and it just took a lot longer because the ratchet was just too long with the an Allen headed socket on there. It just wouldn't hit. It kept hitting the back of this drive shaft. So use an Allen key. The bolts are going to be a little tight. You'll need to make sure you have the tire off the ground to be able to rotate this thing. Make sure it's in neutral. With mine, I didn't mention it earlier, but if you don't know how to put this thing in neutral, there is a it's inside the console in the back. Once you take the little plastic covers off inside, you have to lift off both the top part and the bottom part, so you have access to that little cubby underneath. There's a plastic panel in the back, and there's a little plastic lever. You're gonna pull that up, and that automatically puts it in neutral. And the thing for that is so you can have it towed or whatever. With these electronic shifters, it's not as easy as just putting it in neutral. So put it in neutral, and you're able to spin this. And the process was the same. You got to get the 6 bolts off, and then you got to pound it out. And I made divots just like I did in the front, and it gives you a way to put a screwdriver in there and pound it out. Now mine were a little more difficult to get out. They were rusted to hell in there. My Jeep came up from up north, and you know, everything I've done on this for the first time, it's always rusty. So basically I basically pound that thing out. This one came out a little bit easier than that back one, but basically once we got that out, the plywood that was under here supported it, so I didn't have to put anything special under here to support it. So once that's out, basically all that's left to do is unbolt the transfer case from the transmission. It's 8 bolts. You can't really see them up in here. You can kind of see them back up in there. You can see 2 of them. Now I had to switch out 2 of my little 5-point headed ones to socket type bolts because the head's kind of stripped out. They aren't torqued in there super tight, but they're a little bit hard to get to. The bottom 6 are not really that bad to get to, but there are 2 on the top that kind of, if you got big hands, you're probably gonna have some trouble. You really got to get your hand kind of in an awkward position to get them out. Like I said, they're not tight, but they're in there enough to make it really difficult to get out. I will show you guys a little clip of on the other transfer case of where exactly the bolts are and how it sits, so you can kind of get an idea. Basically, once those are out, it's basically unbolted. So you get the 8 bolts out. The only thing then it's holding it on is the output shaft from the transmission. Basically, you're just gonna, it doesn't weigh very much. I don't know exact weight, but I couldn't say it weighs more than 40 pounds. It's not that heavy. I was able to put it up in here by myself. I had my dad here when I first took it out, and it really wasn't that bad. So pull it out. After that, it's basically out. You know, if you're wanting to, you know, change the chain out, you're gonna take the case apart. But if you're like me and you had an extra case that you bought, it's just a quick switch. All I had to do was basically put the new one up there. There's 2 alignment pins on the transfer case that you're gonna have to get up in there. It was a little bit difficult getting it matched up at first, but once it's on there, I took a rubber mallet and kind of, you know, banged on it a little bit. Don't use a regular hammer, use a rubber mallet. Banged on it until it fits snug. Okay, so here is the other transfer case, and basically this is exactly how it's going to be sitting in the Jeep. So you see this cupped end on the basically the yoke of the transfer case. So those drive shafts sit inside here. Now, if this gets, after time, it gets rust on there, that's what's going to be holding it in there and keeping it from just coming out. Because as you can see, the bolts are what's holding it in. So you got the 6 bolts in here, and then basically once you bolt it in there, it kind of compresses it in there. It's not really pressed in there, but it's enough to keep it from just pulling out. So that'll kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. And then on the other side, you can see you got the shaft that's gonna hook up to the actual transmission, and then you got the front drive shaft side, and you can see these bolt holes. These 2 holes right here, you got one and you got the other one, are gonna be the alignment pins that are on the actual transmission. Those are going to fit in there. Now, the bolts that are hard to get to are these 2 that are up here, that one and that one. The other 6 are not that bad to get to. Those are super easy down there. Those 2 are easy. These are a little bit more difficult, really not that bad still. Just these, you can't just have quick access to them. You got to kind of reach over the transmission and whatnot, but it's still doable. You can see them, it's just a little bit difficult. So once you get those out, basically that just slides out. Make sure you pack some grease in there whenever you put it back on. You just kind of want to make all this stuff super easy if you ever have to take it back off, or somebody else has to take it back off, whatnot. It just makes it easier for everyone. Clean everything up. You don't want to put, you know, a nasty transfer case back up in there if it's all covered in fluid and whatnot. And then once everything's bolted back up in there, you're gonna need to fill it. Now, the easiest thing to fill this with is a little hand pump. I just went to Harbor Freight and got one. Okay, so this is the pump I'm talking about. Now I have it sitting here because it was leaking fluid out here, but I picked this up from Harbor Freight. Basically all you do is stick one end in the bottle of fluid and the other in the transfer case, and you can do this on your diffs too, so it comes in handy on a lot of things. Basically all you're going to do is pump the fluid in to the fill hole in the transfer case. Now I think it calls for, it's a little over a quart of fluid. It's between a quart and a half of fluid. I think it's 1.2 or 1.4 quarts of ATF plus 4. Now this is what I'm using, the Valvoline. Make sure you're using something that is licensed. You don't want to use just an off-brand that isn't licensed. I know these have a lot of different additives and whatnot in them. It's safer just to get something that's licensed. Valvoline, I think it was 10 bucks a quart, so not expensive. This stuff's full synthetic. Yeah, so like I said, you're basically gonna fill it up till it comes out of the top hole in the transfer case, which if you didn't look up at that transfer case, basically show you. Basically you can see there's two bolts under there, the bottom one and the top one. Obviously the bottom one is the drain hole and the top one is the fill. So you're gonna undo the bottom first, make sure that comes out, and then you'll do the top. Now if you're putting a new case in, it's probably already empty. You don't have to worry about it. Just make sure you have a drain pan underneath there to catch any fluid. I made kind of a mess at first. You can see the big stain under here. Left that hose under there inside a bottle, and bottle tipped over, so had some mess to clean up. But basically other tools you're going to need obviously are some sockets, 13 millimeter, 16 millimeter. Those are common under there. Ratchet, I'm using a 5/16 Allen head socket. That's basically what you're going to use to take all those drive shaft bolts off. Also, I would have an Allen head key in the same size for that front one. Just makes it easier than trying to stick this ratchet, because you can see there's a little bit of length on there and they're just really hard to fit in there. Those bolts are in there tight against the shaft. Also, you're going to need a 5-point socket. I had this one. This is one I got at Home Depot. Basically, it was made for a few different types of head bolts, but it worked great on there. It's 10 millimeter, and you're going to use those on those bolts holding the transfer case together, or well, not just that, the ones holding to the transmission. So basic hand tools, nothing specialty was used on any of this. So this is something, if you have some decent mechanical skills, you can do in your driveway. Nothing special. Now if you break some bolts, obviously you guys are gonna have to figure that out. Luckily I can just, you know, weld them up if anything happens. That did actually happen to me under there. I thought I was gonna have to remove the whole rear drive shaft, and I undid the carrier in the middle. There's two bolts holding it up there. Well, they actually snapped off, which I don't know why they snapped off, because they weren't rusted or anything, but they ended up snapping off. So I had to weld in new nuts into there. So for you guys that don't have the access to a welder or someone that knows how to weld, just keep that in the back of your mind. If you have a bolt that starts not wanting to work itself out, don't keep going at it, because it's probably going to break off. And if it breaks off, you got to figure out what to do. So I was able to weld bolts in there to basically have that accessible. All in all, you know, keep a day. If you're planning on doing this, you know, keep a day reserved to do it. It's going to take you most of the day to do it. At least now you'll have a little bit of insight on what goes on in there. It's not just, there weren't really any videos up when I looked this up. I think most people that change the transfer case out on these are in a shop. They're not doing it in their driveway. Well, you know, once these things get up in age, and if you like to wheel it, whatnot, you're putting stress on everything. You got bigger tires, all that's putting a lot of stress on your drivetrain. So, you know, you got to keep that in the back of your head. If you don't work on these, you know, you're probably gonna need to find a shop that can do this, because eventually something's gonna break. I've had to do CVs on the front of this. Those aren't that bad. I wasn't sure about the transfer case since we'd never done it, but honestly, it really wasn't that bad. Cost me less than $300 to do a transfer case. I'm pretty good with that. All right, so that kind of wraps everything up. You know, don't be afraid to tackle this job if you've got transfer case that needs switched out. It's really not that bad. It'll save you a lot of money, but you know, if you need to take it to shop, don't feel bad about doing that. I just don't personally like to pay people to work on my Jeep. I can just do it myself. Also like to kind of tackle some of the stuff. So some of you guys that do work on it but want to know how to do it for stuff like this, you know, gives you a video to watch that gives you a little more idea. There wasn't really any videos out here on this, so hopefully this will help some of you guys in the future. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, give me a follow. Also get over there on Instagram. I'm on there. I post a lot more on there, so at TRAILTROOPER WK2 is my username on there. I try to post pretty often on there, so I'll get some new videos up here pretty soon. I want to do another walk around of the Jeep. Basically, kind of like I did last time. I've got some new stuff on there, as you can see. If you're not following me on Instagram, I got a new front bumper, new roof rack, a few other things, new tire carrier, a few options on there. So basically, that kind of wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, just hit me up with a comment below, and I'll answer it when I can. Thanks, guys.